Most professionals, business owners and freelancers have a non-linear CV. You've got to try different stuff to see if you like it. I have so much respect for business owners who are willing to try, willing to take a risk and just see what happens. Take this example. How can you go from male dancer to head of people? It's coming up now on Work This Way. Welcome to Work This Way by Foundry, our weekly podcast learning stories about Foundry members across the UK. This week, we are joined by Haydan Firth, a member in FOUNDRY Poole. Haydan has worked in lots of different jobs, from a manager of a phone shop to a life coach, and now fractional head of people. Haydan, tell us what a fractional head of people does.
I think what I identified was that a lot of smaller businesses will outsource HR, which is the perfect thing to do. Yeah, because you may not need someone 5 days a week doing that role.
No.
However, when you outsource HR as a small business, quite often what I've seen is a lot of the work becomes reactive. So it might be a policy is needed. We need you to look at this situation. What then gets missed is the proactive people work. Now, I love developing people, and I've realized I love developing organizations. So if a small organization is outsourcing HR and they're getting all the boxes ticked that they need to around policy, employment law, any kind of performance management issues they can run through that person, who's doing kind of that people strategy? Who's doing the well-being strategy? Who is coaching and developing the team? There's no L&D presence at that point. So I thought, what if I offered a service that was a day a week, potentially, maybe less? I don't need to be, you don't need to do my holiday or paying my tax or anything. I still want this to be my own business.
Yeah.
Let me do the well-being stuff. It's stuff that has to happen at some point. And I think we all know that if you've not got your good culture before about 50 staff, it's going to be hard work to make that happen after.
Yeah. As a culture, as an employer, and you want to be attractive to new talent, this has to be embedded. I know that we're growing quite quickly. We're finding lots of new, really impressive people. I always believe as a leader, my role is to elevate.
Yeah.
There's some great people in Foundry, and I just love watching them grow and watching them work their magic. But I know the culture is a huge part of the reason they're at Foundry.
So it's one of those, it's something that may still seem like a luxury, but it's a non-negotiable at this point. If you're not looking after your people, and you've only got to look at employment law changes to go, like day one rights means it's harder to get rid of people. So if you've not got someone ensuring you've got a culture, you can then interview against that culture to get the right people. You can onboard them properly and you can give them this great experience. That's the stuff to make sure that none of this is a problem for you.
Foundry, we're around 40 people now. We're going to be growing to 70 quite quickly.
Yep.
We outsource our HR. Not uncommon. Agree. Very reactive. Sell to me the benefit of working with a fractional head of people and how that can reduce the pressure on our operations lead.
Firstly, in leadership, that as a business grows, what you need is really competent leaders, and a lot of people aren't necessarily set up for that.
Sure.
We may sometimes hire on skill with, I'm sure they can lead a team. To reduce headaches for upper level, so people like yourself, any other leads you've got, what you need is good leadership at every level. It just means that everyone can actually start to take ownership over their section instead of everything escalating all the way up to the top every time, which seems to happen a lot in lots of organizations I've seen.
Yeah.
Also, it's about really considering not just what's happening now, but where you're going. And someone like myself was able to anticipate what some of those issues may be and put those processes in place. So having a bit of well-being strategy as well.
Haydan, you're fractional head of people for MyTime Carers. Tell us a little more about them.
MyTime are a charity for young carers. They're called MyTime Young Carers, and the strapline is levelling the playing field for young carers. They have a level up service where they educate schools around who young carers are and their needs, so schools are better prepared to support them. MyTime offers a few different programs in order to do things like give the kids a bit of respite, to educate schools into who young carers are and their needs. And all this stuff is basically to give them a bit of a better chance. And I didn't know a huge amount about it until I really worked with them, but the work they do is incredible and they're growing so rapidly, and it's something I'm so proud to be a part of.
Were you a good kid?
I was all right. I think I was quite smart found things boring and got in trouble a lot because of that. And then grammar school, I then suddenly wasn't so smart and struggled. But it was while I was in my secondary school, I picked up a new hobby, which was dance. That kind of formed the next chapter of my life in the fact that once I'd finished at my grammar school, I didn't want to continue on in education, didn't have any clear educational direction. So I ended up going to college to dance, which was a fun 2 years. I then was at a loss again and decided, well, I'll just go to uni. So I stayed in Poole again, did 2 years at Bournemouth Uni until, because I did a foundation degree, to get that finished, I had to pack a suitcase and change county. So I went off to Plymouth Uni and came back and graduated with this dance degree, came back here. Very happy to be back. Plymouth was great. I really enjoyed it, but I've always loved here. I believe most people should move away from home. There's no reason for you to stay where you were brought up just because, but there's nowhere better for me. We've got beaches, we've got the New Forest, we've got towns, rural areas, like just got everything I need. If I want to go to the cinema, like there's a built-up area. If I want to go for a country walk, there's that. If I want to go for a swim, there's a sea. So I came straight back and was really keen to pursue my dance career, but also pick up some part-time work that would get me some experience, basically. So I found this job for a mobile phone retailer, got that 20 hours a week, so it's just perfect. I can get some money in, I can build up my dance career. And then 20 hours turned into 30 hours, 30 turned to full-time, and within 6 months, I'd become a manager of that store, which was amazing because I'd never put my hand to that, but sadly that meant the dance career dropped off the face of a cliff without me really realising either. I blinked and 5 years had gone by from part-time job, grow my dance career, to, oh, it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
And right at the end of that was COVID.
That must have been a real opportunity for you to reassess, knowing you now.
Obviously it brought challenges for everyone. I'm one of the lucky people that it did a good thing for, and I was quite lucky in the fact that all I was doing was working in training, and I had access to a private gym, so I still got to train, and work became a bit more interesting because my focuses suddenly became developing a team, supporting a team with well-being, but it left me a lot of space to do my own personal development as well. So each day just seemed to be this kind of get up, go to the gym, read a book, check in on the team, couple calls on the laptop, bit of training, and then wrap the day up. And then the big turning point came when I remember waiting to be called back to work, and they called us back a month earlier than expected because they wanted us to do work in the store. It was dreadful. I remember as soon as I saw the email, I left the house, went for a walk, and I was crying because I was like, I don't want to go back.
You're in that groove, right?
I was a great people manager, but I didn't care about that stuff. So yeah, I just remember going for this walk, and I remember on that walk, I decided I'm not staying. Like I just made that commitment that I'm not staying there. And I remember this is when I discovered the idea of becoming a life coach. The universe helped me out a bit, stars aligned, and I landed meeting some great people and finding this course, invested a lot of money into doing said course. And the aim was to finish that, become an accredited coach, and be able to quit my job. That timeline just moved very quickly in terms of, as I was learning, I was getting excited and I was disliking the job more, and I was so done. 6 months into doing that year-long course, I handed my notice in. And this was a process of every day. I'd written a notice and I just left all the dates blank. So it was to the right person, all the right content, signed by me. And there was a time when I put the year in, so I knew it was going to be like this year. And then at some point I put a month in, and then I moved that month back. And every day I read it just to make it really real. And yeah, it was 6 months into that course. I handed my notice in, left the job, but I stuck with it. And yeah, that moved me into this career as a life coach initially.
You speak a lot about your passion, dancing. How did you see that playing out?
I didn't have any initial thoughts. I just enjoyed it. That was the starting point, which is a great place to come from. College was good, uni was good. I started to major in male dance. Was part of a male dance group called Whitewash. Before I joined, I'd seen them, and I just remember thinking, dance had always been this very feminine, people would use the word. I always used to get called gay, and that had always been the view externally. And then I went and watched a few kind of male dance groups and whitewash, and this is the most powerful, like, masculine thing I think I'd ever seen. And I just wanted other people to see it. So when I got a chance to get involved, I did. I wrote a dissertation around, I think I called it Guys Who Dance Are Gay, to debunk some of those myths. You can do cruise ships, you can go into shows, you could have your own company, you could go into backing dancer, music videos, all that stuff. And I think had it continued, think I would have gone down the route of creating or becoming part of a company, so I could continue that creative part of it. Yeah. But I also knew it would be so tough. That's why I didn't really end up pursuing it, because I knew the options were have a career in something I love, but maybe fall out of love with it, or keep a hobby that I really enjoy.
Hey, you talk a lot about growth, personal development. Give us some insight into that part of your life. What does growth mean to you then? What does it mean to you now?
I think growth has always meant the same thing, and it is as simple as just being better.
Right.
And I think what I like most about that is, as much as I like the result of growing, I feel like it goes somewhat unnoticed, but it's that pursuit of growth. It showed up in the dance of kind of rehearsing till you've got something right. It showed up in the gym of day after day, going in, moving weights, getting bigger, seeing it. And then obviously as a business owner, trying different iterations of things, pushing just to make things better and better. But I think where it's so important for me is because it's not just my growth, but it's others.
We know that the members love you. You've always got an ear.
Yeah.
You're always around. You're a fit lad. Fitness is a big part of who you are. Has that evolved?
Yeah, fitness evolved a lot for me, and it all stemmed from, I was a very skinny teen, like super skinny, very insecure about it. I still vividly remember this girl telling me that I was really skinny, and like the visceral reaction of feeling like not good enough. And I felt like there was no way out of it either. So I remember the day I turned 18, I joined the gym. So my friends were into bodybuilding. So for a couple of years, it was very much this kind of bodybuilding-esque type of training, just getting to the gym, lifting the heaviest things I can, doing it all for how I looked. And it was great. But when you look at these people who are big and strong, generally you're not very functional.
Yeah.
And I just hated the fact that if I walked up the stairs, I'd be sweating. If I tried to run, my knees and my lower back would give out, and I was just not healthy.
Yeah.
Along came another pivot. And this came like exactly as I quit my job.
Right.
Was one decision was about quitting my job to start a career, but I was spending so much time and money in the gym that there was a huge risk to my career not panning out if I didn't give the time and energy I needed to make that happen.
I personally love getting your Monday motivation emails. Anyone that gets Haydan's emails, they're brilliant. They talk about what you were reading at the time, quotes. Got your email a few weeks ago, Monday morning. I do read them.
Yep.
I actually quite look forward to them though.
Good.
And I do sometimes buy the books that you recommend as well.
I'm glad to hear it.
But one of your emails released today, a few weeks ago, and it was about your hair loss and your decision to shave your head. Tell us a bit more about that journey.
I was always at a kind of genetic predisposition. My dad and his brothers were all bald. My granddad was bald. My hair was very similar to my dad's, so I knew from an earliest age, there's not hair in my future. But my dad lost his hair at 21, and I flew through that. So I was like, okay, that's a good sign. But as time has gone on, it's thinned, which is totally normal. Perhaps not for mid-20s, late 20s. It's maybe something you'd expect to see later. But as I look back at pictures from 4 years ago, 3, 2, 1 years ago, you just see the fringe thinning, a bit of a better attempt to cover it up with a slightly longer fringe. Hopefully no photos were taken from above, because there was a little bald spot appearing there, and having super blonde hair as well, like it didn't help. I think I'd seen in the last 18 months, mine had definitely got worse. And what's interesting is when I started saying to people I was thinking of doing it, and one day I was just like, I've just had enough. It's so not worth this. So I toyed with it. A few people said, we really don't think you need to, like it looks great. I just want to lead from the front here. So I took the plunge, went to my barber, and was like, get rid. And we'd had conversations about it, but I remember Googling it before, being like, any tips for men about to shave their head? And I read a couple articles and people were like, it's so liberating. And I was like, it just can't be. Like, to have looked at myself in the mirror for 29 odd years and seen hair, I thought that's going to be really weird. And what if I've got a weird shaped head? What if there's like a big thing in the back of it? But anyway, the best moment of it was, I think, the first person I went to show was my partner, because it's going to impact her the most. She's one who's got to see it all the time.
Yeah.
And I went around with the hood up, and she knew it was coming at some point. I took my hood off, and her reaction was just like, oh my God, it looks amazing. And I was like, cool. That was me done.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I needed to hear. Yeah. The person closest to me to go, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And since, the feedback's been great. And I think it was such a scary thing, and it just didn't need to be.
Yeah.
Like, he's just hair at the end of the day.
Yeah, you've always come across as having your shit together, frankly. But it's really interesting to understand your journey and the pivots that you've made and the tweaks that you're still making. Any real low moments for you?
One of the low moments for me was actually when I left Plymouth Uni, because I think everyone hates that feeling of wasting time. And I hoped that third year would be the thing to propel me into this dance career. I thought I would go do it. I was excited to be away from home for the first time. It all at the beginning felt really exciting. And I just remember when I left, I just couldn't have been happier to leave. And I just remember leaving feeling like it was a bit of a waste of time. It was a real slap in the face. And I had a few personal things as well with just how I spent my time there. I didn't feel excited about dance.
Mm-hmm.
But I think where there's light in this is I wouldn't change it at all. If I could go back and split test it, the things I would do differently are, I wouldn't have found a relationship there, because that...
Split test, that's interesting.
Yeah. I don't like the idea of doing it differently, but I'd love to split test it and see what another route would look like, because I don't want to change it. I'll give some insight as to why, but it was pivotal. But because I found a relationship there, it took me out of being outgoing and meeting people. I became very settled just in my uni halls.
That's it.
What is so beautiful about this and why I love it now is because all the stuff that I would love to have seen, I could have tried differently, are all the things I'm really good at now. Finding communities, building relationships, being more like, just being more me, doing my own things. All of that, without really knowing for a while, came from the fact that I did such a bad job of it away. But what that meant was down the line, I was so passionate about finding communities,
Experience you got from that.
growing relationships, all of that stuff.
Really interesting. Thanks, Eddie. Said it before. Come across very level. What is it that you do to achieve what I perceive as a great work-play balance?
I don't think I've ever necessarily thought too deeply about it. When I lay out my calendar, I make sure that there are blocks in the morning and evening that are different colours to my work blocks, so that when I look at it, it doesn't just look like a sea of work.
What's your morning look like?
So the things I do are the morning dips, which hard to do anything but be present when you're in 7-degree water and it's pitch black. And again, it links to that growth piece I said about if it's just doing something hard. Like I love that. The gym is another one. Like I said, I've really got into CrossFit, and for that, maybe 20 minutes you're in the actual workout. You've not got time to think about anything else. You're just trying to breathe and stay alive.
Hey, saw you down at BH2. You go to the cinema every week. That's commitment, but I imagine this is part of your work-play balance.
I understand the cinema can be a bit of an expensive place. Not if you buy one of the membership cards. I love that my hands are tied for a couple hours a week where at the cinema, I'm sat down, no phone, not thinking about anything. I'm just, whether it's good or bad. And that's the question people always ask. Is there even enough for you to go and see? Because there's some like great blockbuster things come out that I'm excited to see. And I go with my cousin. Said we do it weekly, and it gives us stuff to talk about, and it creates conversations externally as well about films I've seen. Quite often I'm learning stuff from some of these films as well. But ultimately it is that presence piece where for a couple hours, I'm not really even on the planet. I'm like in this movie. And it's so underestimated.
Favorite movie?
The substance. A very quite gory, bit of a psychological horror almost, but it covers a very interesting theme. It centers around an aging star and her wanting to be a better, younger version of herself and some of the pressure of that. And you just have to watch it. But that blew me away.
So thanks for all the tips on work-play balance from someone who seems very good at it. Tell us a little bit about what we can do for you at Foundry.
Do you know what? There isn't actually anything that comes to mind simply because I'd say you're doing it. I feel so privileged is the fact I've had this opportunity to be an ambassador for Foundry, which I'm super passionate about. I love this brand, what it does. It's been game changing. Another pivotal moment in my kind of career being here. That's been great. And the expansion you're doing and the platform you give me is what's creating opportunity.
Vice versa for us, though, Hayden.
Yeah.
You had a lot of value here. You give your time up. You're very generous. You're very well liked in the community. So there's a lot of positives right now in Poole.
Yeah, it went from a place where we would go every weekend to go and get everything we needed to a place we never felt a need to come to anymore, to a place where I'm here majority of the week again, which doesn't make sense for what the climate is. So what LNG have done, and it's been really interesting reading about it as well, is amazing. Like how they did that with Kingland and the investment into Foundry here. And I get such a buzz hearing people be like, oh, have you seen the new food places in Poole?
We're lucky to be in these towns. We care deeply about your people in these towns and our members.
Can I just say as well, actually, there's always been a bit of a stigma about Poole bus station. It's a bit of a grotty place. And I think the thing that I love the most is knowing that just above that is a collection of some of Poole and Bournemouth's best and brightest minds. Like Voltex is
global business.
Yeah.
Incredible. Great story.
Oh,
lovely lads.
I went into River Island the other day to buy something, and the girl there, like I was chatting to her and she was serving me and she said, oh, what is Foundry? And like, to me, this is madness. How would you describe what you do and why do you do it?
It is my job to elevate the team, the people of Foundry, to put the right people in the right places, to make sure that our people do what they love doing, because that's where you're going to get the best out of your people. That is my core focus. Yes, profitability. Yes, return on investment to the underlying investor. Absolutely. All of that comes from having the right people. Why do I do what I do? There's a very personal story, which goes rather back to my childhood, watching my parents struggle, run their own business. And they had some great highs and they had some pretty awful lows. And my dad is a very entrepreneurial type of character. And my mum backed him. And they worked together for all of their married life. And I just watched them really struggle. And they tried to run that business from a garden shed, from our bedrooms in the end. And it wasn't a small business. It was 180 people in it. And community, lack of community, watching them struggle.
Yeah.
That then developed on, I ran my own business, and I could see that running your own business, being an entrepreneur, it can be really lonely. And if you can surround yourself with great people, great team, but also like-minded entrepreneurs, you can learn from each other, you can listen to each other, and you can just moan if you have to.
Yeah.
And here we are today in Poole, in a Dolphin, which is owned and operated by Legal & General Managed Fund. Hayden, how do people find you?
Best place is probably LinkedIn. You'll probably find me somewhere dotted across some Foundry stuff as well. But LinkedIn, Haydan Firth, Haydan. Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place at the moment. There'll be a website at some point, but it's not been top of the priority list. And yeah, my recommendation would be to sign up to my newsletter. Not because I think it's great, but because I just tend to get good feedback and it's just a value add piece every week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Work This Way by Foundry. This episode was hosted by myself, Adam Walker, the sound engineer, Josh Hall, and produced by Gary James. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and do us a favour, leave a 5-star review. Go on, we'll see you next week.